Well, thank you, Mr. Benate, for joining us. We're looking at the outcome of that International Monetary Fund where you met with members of CAMEC. And now some of the conclusions after that meeting, according to you, you did say that outlook for the rest of 2013 points to a slowdown in economic growth and, of course, real GDP, even though we did see a strengthening in the first half of this year. Now, what do you think member countries can do to mitigate, or rather, policies they can take to strengthen their economies in the second half of this year?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Well, indeed, at the regional level, the economic performance has been fairly solid in the past years, with growth reaching 5% last year. But we expect some slight slowdown this year, basically due to specific factors in Equatorial Guinea. But overall, we believe that the outlook over the medium term remains fairly favorable, with growth possibly averaging 4% over the next 5 years, inflation staying moderate, and with budget and external position also remaining fairly stable. However, there are a number of risks that the region is still facing and will need to mitigate. The first one is that overall it's a region which remains quite dependent on oil revenues and would therefore be very vulnerable to a sharp decline in oil prices. And the second is that the growth prospects will very much hinge on structural reforms to boost private sector development, because one of the main drivers of growth that we have seen in the recent past has been public investment, in particular investment in infrastructure, and this will not be able to be sustained for many years. And instead, growth will have to rely on much more active private sector development. And in that regard, we encourage the authorities to improve the access to a financial sector. Unfortunately, today, the financial sector in CEMAC countries remains one of the least developed in sub-Saharan Africa. And the second important priority is to enhance the business climate, which is among the most difficult in the region. We also think that better regional integration needs to be achieved. Okay, so there are a number of reforms.
Mr. Benate, talking about regional integration, in what specific ways are members what specific ways are members deepening regional integration?
Well, there are still a number of internal obstacles which actually, put the intra-regional trade at a very low level. Intra-regional trade represents only 3 to 4% of total trade in the region. Also, we believe that there is a need to better coordinate their development policies, like the investment programs, large investment programs for infrastructure, which need to take the regional dimension better into account. And then in terms of the business climate, to really aim at making the region as a whole as a better market to attract foreign direct investment.
Now, finally, Mr. Benate, some of these members in CEMAC are exposed to the international commodities market. Now, of course, there's a need for them to look inwards and perhaps diversify the economy. What steps do you think they can take at this time to become less reliant on commodities?
Well, as I said, they will need to improve the business climate to allow diverse private sector to develop. There are still a number of obstacles in terms of red tape to business creation. When you look at, for example, all the doing business indicators of the World Bank, we see that the countries in the region are ranked among the lowest in the world. So a number of measures can be done to improve this business climate and have a much more thriving private sector, which would bring diversification to the economies.
Now, you're forecasting going forward for the rest of 2013 growth at between 3 and 3%. What could member countries do specifically to increase this growth, perhaps 4, 5%?
Well, I mean, the situation, as I said, is depends from country to country, and this slowdown for the region really comes mainly from our projection for Equatorial Guinea. I mean, for the rest of the countries, we believe that growth will remain at around 4 to 5% this year. So it's still a favorable outcome. With regard to Equatorial Guinea, this will very much depend on their ability to implement public investment, and this will remain the main driver of growth for this year.